agenda.
To date, and by the end of this year, it will be 9 cities that we have worked with on community engagement projects similar to the one that we did here in Brisbane earlier this year. And those projects involve the use of teams of folks, teams from the community, teams from Home for All, and our partner in this project, community engagement project, a nonprofit group called Common Knowledge that has a great deal of expertise in the area of community involvement, community engagement, outreach. So our team in Brisbane, I just want to say right off the bat, was a stellar team. And we had Mayor Davis and Councilmember Lentz as part of that team. And then we had your city manager, Clay Holstein, your planning director, John Swickey, Caroline Chung, and Angel Ibarra. And it was a pleasure to work with each and every one of them. And it really was sort of the best example of how collaboration can pay off, I think, in terms of thinking about what's best for your community. So The goals, and I'm not very good about remembering to do this, so let me just move it on. I've covered this slide about educating, innovating, and convening. The goals for the community conversations were developed by the team working together, and really we're looking at the opportunity that you wanted to bring the Brisbane community together after some sort of challenging period of where there had been a lot of discourse and some disagreement about things, bring them back together to begin to look together about what's important in the community, what do they value about Brisbane as their home and as their community, and how can there be a more unified approach moving forward in the face of the upcoming development of the Baylands project. So that was the setting and the context that we were working in. We sponsored, the city sponsored, and we helped with 2 community conversations. I know that our 2 council members were present, and other council members were also present at those conversations as listeners. We asked council members and planning commission members and city staff to be present in these community conversations so that they could hear what community members are saying in a way that's different than what you are often offered as more formal kinds of interactions, or totally informal at the grocery store or the park or wherever you are. This was a structured conversation setting, as you may remember, where we had small groups at tables that were able to address specific questions about information that we were provided at each of the 2 conversations. I'm not going to go deeply into the content of those 2 community conversations. I'll just say that the first conversation was about here we are now, we're poised on an opportunity to look forward, to think about what's important in Brisbane and how do we carry that important thinking forward. The second conversation had to do more specifically with the Baylands development project and provided information to the community about the process that they could expect to see happening, and also provided the opportunity for community members to identify specific areas of interest that they'd like to be involved with as the Baylands project unfolded. And I'll just say that, again, our council members were, as part of the team, were really helpful in helping us shape that second meeting after having participated in the first meeting. So we really appreciated it. It was a little different model than we've used in other cities, but we will be using it again because we think it is very helpful. So on March 21st, we had our first meeting. We had about 100 community members there that evening. And I think that the evaluations that came back from participants showed that we were really able to achieve what we were looking to achieve, which is to give them the opportunity to get information about their community, learn more about what's going on, and be able to share with each other what's important to them. What do they want to see in the future in the city of Brisbane, and how do they think they might contribute to that? The second meeting was held on Saturday afternoon, May 4th, and that meeting focused more on the Baylands development process, providing information about the very kind of complex process that will be unfolding over the next period of time, and really trying to help people, both through the presentation and through the materials that were distributed, get a sense of both how things will work and where they can plug in to the process when the opportunities are available to them. So I think that I would like to stop there with the, well, let me go through and say a couple more things. Here's some photos. One of the things that we did was provide reports after each meeting. If you haven't yet seen those reports, they are available, and they provide really specific information about what took place at the meeting. That's the second meeting and photos. I wanted to just end my presentation and open to any questions that you might have with the idea that really, I think our joint goal was to bring the community in Brisbane to a place where it can begin productively to be working together to help shape the future and ensure that the future in Brisbane is the kind of future that embodies the values and the principles that they really care about. We introduced them at the second meeting to the idea that the Baylands developer will be holding a series of workshops. The first workshop will be taking place on June 30th, and we publicized that and encouraged people to participate as they were able to do that. As the result of this work, and I just want to again say that Brisbane already had a very robust method of communicating with your community members, and much more so than in some of the cities that we've worked with. But working with Caroline and with the team, we have really been able, I think, to strengthen that process, add new people to the communication list, and in process now, which will be I think unveiled very shortly, is a new Baylands project site that will be a source of information and ongoing communication with the community about what's going on with the Baylands project. There is also a wonderful new, not a new idea, but it is an idea that hasn't been used in very many communities regularly, sort of like the old welcome wagon idea, but in Brisbane you have initiated a welcome packet that you are sending out to new community members as they move into the community. And it's an opportunity to provide them with all sorts of information about the community, including information about the Baylands development, and offer opportunities to them to be part of the community. One little anecdote was at our second meeting, we had an attendee who had just moved in to the community, and it was really wonderful to have a brand new member there who wanted to be involved, took this opportunity, and quite nicely we all thought won one of the door prizes as a reason, just happened to do that as the drawing at the end of it. And it was really an upper for all of us to just kind of see his enthusiasm and energy that he brought to the meeting. So I think I will close there and see if you have any questions of me.
I'd like to make a comment if I may, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Pat, for the presentation, and thank you for bringing your Home for All crew to Brisbane. I think our community really needed to have that third-party, outside entity to come and just be a neutral partner and helping us, get over the election and start to plan for the future. And one of the things that I thought was really exciting from these two workshops is that, yes, people are scared about and concerned regarding the contamination, and that we want to make sure that we put forth the proper remediation process to make sure that it's safe. But moving beyond that, people really wanted to connect with the Baylands, and I've been around the block a while, and in the past it was, there was kind of a separation. Let's have this all the development in the north, and that'll just be there, and we'll be our thing, and people really wanted to connect, and not have two communities, but have one community. And that was just really inspiring for me. And so thank you for helping us with that. And now we'll be ready to move on to the next level and work with the developer. And I feel that the information that you gathered will be very useful in helping the developer to put forth things that represent the values of the community. And I think it also helped the community build confidence in itself, because that's so important as we move forward in the next phase. So thank you very much, Pat.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us. And I will just say that we hope that the future will hold some opportunities for us to, again, work together. Home for All will be continuing. We have done work with our cities that we worked with last year. We've helped them with different projects that they're doing this year. So that opportunity is out there if something comes up.
Yeah, thank you for that invitation.
Thanks, Pat.
Welcome.
No one else, right? Okay.
No, good, thanks.
And I understand that sort of report on what was shared at these workshops is available on the city's website and was printed in the Star, right? Okay, great. So if anyone would like to read up on what the community said during those workshops, that is available. So let's go ahead and move on to the consent calendar. And we have items A through N on the consent calendar. Do I have a motion to approve?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to pull item J just for a quick comment, if I might. And with that, I would approve items A through,
A through I and K through N.
yes.
Do I have a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that item J.
So I just, I appreciate the work that staff went into this item, which is a water supply agreement with 100, a prospective or new tenant on 100 West Hill. And I just wanted to ask if we had an opinion from staff if entering into this water agreement sets any precedents for us striving to locate water for other future or current tenants.
Well, the city attorney and I played a quick game of Rochambeau and I lost, so it appears I get to answer that. I think it does, but I think it sets precedents based on the emergency ordinance that we passed just a few months ago, where we've recognized that we are not only rapidly approaching the limit of our individual supply guarantee that we have from the Public Utilities Commission and the regional water supply system, but also that we are seeing a change in the uses of the existing buildings we had that had never been forecast. We're seeing a lot of bioscience. We're seeing these extensive kitchens, such as this business is the extent of. We're seeing party rental places, which have an incredible amount of washing that goes on. We're seeing places that are filling it with bottles. Most of the businesses that we had seen before out here were freight forwarders. They didn't use very much water. They didn't have very many people. So I think it was very important that the council adopted the emergency ordinance back when you did a few months ago. And this is going to be a precedent. I'm going to be going out and trying to find some water to support this business. And I think there is some incentive for the water suppliers that have additional water to do so right now. I think everyone is very concerned about the different steps that the State Water Resources Control Board is taking, and folks who have a significant amount of guarantee beyond their use are very concerned that the State Water Board might come in and say, well, that is an unreasonable use of water by you capturing and keeping and holding it to you and not using it. So now is probably as good a time as any for us to be doing that, because I think there will be motivated sellers.
Okay.
With respect, we may want to not use precedent. City's practice fits with Mr. Brialt's presentation, but precedent in a water context usually means legal, and you don't want to be saying you're establishing a legal precedent. You don't want to be bound to that. If you're not doing that, you don't intend to do it.
Okay. So I'll change my wording of the question to, does this change how we do business by going out to look for water for potential city and commercial uses?
Same answer, ma'am, with the same change in words you just used.
Okay. Thank you. That's the extent of my question. And with that, I would make a motion to approve item J, the water supply agreement for 100 West Hill.
Second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, New business, item A. Consider adoption of resolution 2019-27 calling for a special municipal election to be consolidated with the general election on November 5th, 2019, revising and potentially increasing the business license tax for liquid storage facilities. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and City Council. Excuse me. This is one of 3 tax items that are on your agenda tonight to be sent to the voters in November. The first one, as you've just stated, is the business license tax for liquid storage facilities. This one has a somewhat long and colorful history, as the council and many members of the community are aware. This would first appear before the voters in 2013 and was approved as a business license tax on businesses engaged in operating, license, leasing, supplying, or providing liquid storage facilities within the city of Brisbane. At that time, we established a rate of $115.28 per year for each 1,000 cubic feet of liquid storage capacity. In 2014 and 2015, in good faith, the City Council imposed a resolution for the business license tax that was essentially 1/3 of the value of that. It was $38.91 per each 1,000 cubic feet of storage capacity. In 2016 and 2017, the council then raised it to the full amount, which was $115.28. Kinder Morgan Santa Fe Pacific Pipeline Company, which is the is the owner of the liquid storage facility here in Brisbane. This translated to a tax of $135,000 in 2014 and 15, and a tax of $400,000 in 2016 and 17. The company paid the $135,000 in 2014 under protest in December of 2014, and paid the $135,000 again in January of the next year, again under protest, and paid $400,000 in the December 2016 bill, again under protest. The company did not pay a license fee in 2017, but then filed a civil suit against the city of Brisbane in the city of San Mateo County Superior Court, seeking reimbursement for their taxes for 2014, 15, and 16, and nullification of our voter-approved ordinance. After some extensive period of time, the litigation was settled in 2017. We went to a different system of applying a liquid storage rate. The rate now was established at that time to be 3.5 cents per barrel of liquid fuels transported through the Brisbane terminal for delivery, basically an over-the-rack number that was reflective of the actual use out there, as opposed to our original tax, which was a capacity tax. The two parties came to that agreement. We implemented 3.5 cents at first, and then 4 1/3 cents, and then in 2019, 5 1/3 cents. That has generated in 2016, I believe, 261,000, and 2017, 261,000, and 2017, 323,000. So they are current and up to, in terms of their payments. Our system has been under a court settlement, but part of that court settlement was that we would refer to the voters at the next municipal election a ballot measure to adopt the new system, which would be here in 2019, the next municipal election in which there are city council members up for election. So what is before you tonight is a resolution to do just that. Under Proposition 213, any increase in the tax is subject to approval by majority voters voting a proposed increase at a regularly scheduled election members of the Brisbane City Council, which will be on November 5th of this year. I think with that, I will answer any questions.
No questions.
I have no question.
Do you have a motion on this item?
I have a question,
Oh,
Madam Mayor.
okay.
So, Clay, so on the, so with the new language, so for 2019, having the rate be 5 1/3 cents per barrel, would that get us to the 400,000?
I believe that gets us to 365,000. And then when we get to the 6 cents per barrel, we will get up to 400,000.
Okay, and then the original language with the capacity, storage capacity, we were going to get to 400,000 at what year?
Well, we had gotten to 400,000.
Yeah, well, we accelerated
Yeah.
because they decided to sue us, and so we said, okay.
Well, I would say that we had done a couple of early years at a lower rate in good faith, and then they more or less broke off
Broke that good faith, yeah.
negotiations, filed litigation, and at that point, the city council felt that it was appropriate to put in the full rate.
Go back, yeah, and then when we settled, yeah, I thought we were under the impression that we would then just kind of go back to that same kind of rate to get to the 400,000.
Well, we're phasing it in, yes.
Yeah, seems like we've given them another year to get to 400,000 than what we originally. Not including the bonus first year.
Well, I think what's here and what's in the staff report is reflective of what the settlement was.
Wasn't?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we haven't. I haven't felt generous towards the
Okay.
Kinder Morgan.
Yeah. No. Okay. So 2019 will be at 365, and then 2020 we should be at 400,000.
Yes, so, assuming the voters approve the ballot measure.
Assuming they approve it. And I know that's going to be kind of a long shot, but I think we can. I think we can prevail.
The one other thing I should note is that the even though this is a rate per barrel based on activity, it is capped at $400,000.
Yes. Okay. That's it.
Do you have a motion on this item?
Did we do the public hearing?
Oh, yeah, it's a public hearing, you're right. Any member of the public wishing to speak on this item? Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2019-27.
A second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So I'm wondering if actually on the next item, if I should recuse myself, as I have a hotel on my board of directors with the chamber.
Yes, you should.
Okay, I'm gonna leave the room then. I guess you will take over.
All right.
Okay.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
This brings us to new business item B, which is to consider adoption of Resolution 2019-28, calling for a special municipal election to be consolidated with the general election on November 5th, 2019, increasing the transient occupancy tax from 12% to 14%. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem and City Council. Of the three items that are before you tonight, this is probably the most straightforward one. This is a simple increase in the transient occupancy tax from 12% to 14%. A number of cities have either already done this or are in the process of doing it. Most notably, our neighboring city of South San Francisco passed a ballot measure last November that I think was a 2-year phase-in, and they will get the 14% in 2020. So I think in terms of the competition of our hotels, they will be consistent with their most immediate competition. So basically, it's just a tax that is on top of the bill that someone receives at for the privilege of staying at a hotel. And it's applied against the hotels we have in town as well as Airbnb or VBRO. Staff anticipates that this will generate about $400,000 a year. Under discussion, the $200,000 annually there is actually $200,000 per percent. So it's $400,000 altogether, which I think is more clearly stated in the under the fiscal impact. So with that, I'll answer any questions.
Any questions from council?
I have none.
I have one, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. So in the staff report under background, it says in the middle of the paragraph, it says, moreover, the term hotel is broadly defined in the ordinance to include not just not hotels or motels, but also tourist homes such as Airbnb or vacation rental by owner, VRBO rental. So, are we collecting some kind of tax on those now? And then if not, how are we going to implement the new?
Stuart's shaking his head that we're not. I do know that there are some cities that have agreements, and I know that, I don't know, John, did you want to speak in terms of where we're at with the new ordinance on this?
The Planning Commission is going to be having a workshop later this summer for a draft ordinance to regulate and allow for short-term rentals consistent with the policy direction from the planning subcommittee that was provided. So we expect that maybe to get back to the full council in the fall.
Okay, and then whatever the council decides will be folded into this.
It will certainly be subject to it. I think the question is, how do we collect it? And that's that's a conversation, I'll be having with Stuart and his staff. I know some other cities do have agreements with some of these companies, so we'll see if that's possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
I have no questions.
So I'm assuming that this is just a mechanism that would or could include VRBO and Airbnb if the city decides, put it under the umbrella of the same taxing authority.
Right. I mean, if those are allowed uses, then they would be subject to the tax, and then the next step is for us to figure out how to make that actually happen.
Great, thank you. Is there any members of the public who'd like to speak on this item? Seeing no requests, do I have a motion to approve item B?
I will do that. Make a motion to approve resolution 2019-28, calling for special municipal election.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can we ask the mayor to come back in?
Okay. Moving on to item C. Consider adoption of resolution 2019-29 calling for a special municipal election to be consolidated with the general election on November 5th, 2019, establishing a business license tax on cannabis businesses. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and City Council. This is an item that has been reviewed by your council subcommittee with a recommendation to you tonight to move forward with a framework for a cannabis taxes on various sorts of cannabis type businesses. Some of the background is that the 2015, the California legislature enacted the Medical Cannabis Regulation and Safety Act, establishing a state licensing framework for medical cannabis businesses. In 2016, the California voters passed Proposition 64, the Adult Use of Marijuana Act, legalizing adult recreational uses of cannabis. And then in 2017, the Medicinal and Adult Use Cannabis Regulation and Safety Act was enacted, repealing the previous act that this legislature had adopted and bringing it all into one framework. Taken together, these laws allow for the local regulation of cannabis businesses. The Brisbane City Council, I think last year or the year before, adopted a new ordinance to authorize and regulate a limited number of cannabis testing laboratories, medical cannabis-infused products and manufacturers, and cannabis delivery businesses within the city. Additionally, the subcommittee has had discussions about retail activities, and that will be coming forward to the full city council for discussion, and if directed, will then go to the planning commission for consideration. The laws that have been passed allow, permit a local agency to impose business license tax or an excise tax on such businesses. The subcommittee reviewed this and discussed this, and I would say with a very interactive conversation with the industry itself. There was a number of people from cannabis businesses that participated in that conversation. They talked about a amount of 5% of gross receipts for such things as retail cannabis, including delivery business, manufacturing, would be at 4%, distribution and testing at 2%, and then a catch-all phase of up to 6%. The ordinance before you tonight would allow a rate up to 6%, but would be implemented by category, by city council, by resolution, so that in any number of years you might look at different categories and make a determination that you want a higher or lower tax, but could be no higher than 6% on any of these categories. We have estimated in the staff report approximately $300,000 a year in revenue. I would suggest that that's at this point probably more of a swag than it is an informed estimate. As these businesses come into town and start operating, and we start seeing the amount of activity and amount of business related or business-related retail activity that can then be taxed, or distribution that can be taxed, we will get a much better feel for it. So I wouldn't necessarily put your hat on the number of 300,000, but it was just kind of a rough estimate. It may prove to be much greater than that. We don't know. We will see. Again, this item requires it to be consolidated with a general election of the City Council, which is scheduled for November 5th of this year. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
No council questions?
I have questions of the subcommittee.
Okay.
So when we last discussed the item, we took it back to you guys to talk with the folks in the industry in our town and try and come up with something that made sense, right? We have this new fledgling industry, that's being taxed, not only at the local level, but also at the state level. It's kind of interesting, that here you have this new industry that you're trying to get out of the black market, and have it be daylighted. It has all these taxes on it, yet we have, these large corporations, in tech and biotech, and they're not being taxed. So, and then they're making record profits. So, so I know you had the conversations with them, and it seems like this was what they felt was fair at this time. So if you could talk about that.
Yeah, we definitely took into consideration your recommendation about wanting to make sure that we're sensitive to those businesses that are just getting started, because as we're seeing in this industry, kind of the big dogs are rising to the top pretty quickly, and a lot of the smaller businesses are just getting pushed out of the industry entirely. And so we really did want to be sensitive to that. And so that's why it's an up to. So it's not a guarantee that it's a specific amount. Having it say up to really gives the council flexibility to then go back once this is passed and say, okay, if somebody, let's say, makes less than $500,000 a year, then maybe they don't have any taxes at all. And then you can build in that bracketing system, but you don't actually have to lay that out in the ballot measure. Just having that up to really gives you that flexibility to construct that later. So that's the intent, at least from my perspective, and I think from Terry's as well, that the subcommittee really wants to attract these businesses, because we see that there is a really good, can be a great fiscal impact on the city. And so we want to make sure that it is something that is competitive and fair. And we did have quite a lot of input from these businesses who came, and they seemed to feel that this was a fair amount, and this would be something that would not only retain their business, but attract other businesses to come and open up in Brisbane.
So one of the things that I took from the discussions we had with people who are established and people who are trying to get established in this industry was that some of the communities were being somewhat greedy. The state, everybody wanted a little finger in the pie, and that they are looking to relocate to communities that are willing to work with them and who, by putting the limit of 6%, they understand that it's not immediately going to go from, oh, we're saying 2%, and all of a sudden it's going to go to 10 or 20 or 15% once they've got established and don't really have any choices to move. So everyone in the group felt that starting out at this level was something that they could invest in this area and put their time and their resources into a community that did have a limit that would be a fair limit, even if it went to the highest amount. So given that, we thought that we should be somewhere in the middle of the road as far as the amount of taxes that we had the ability to impose, and still give ourselves flexibility to want to attract that kind of business and see how it worked for the community. So I'm really happy with the resolution that we have here, and to take it to the voters. I think it's a really exciting opportunity for us.
And I think the catch-all really speaks to maybe businesses that don't quite yet exist or we haven't pondered yet, like a lounge potentially, something where there's consumption on site. That's something we haven't discussed. So that's why, we've really only laid out specific amounts for businesses that we plan to have or that we're open to. So the 6% is there as sort of a safety mechanism. So if we want to be flexible and be able to have other types of businesses that maybe don't exist right now or we haven't considered, then there's already a tax in place. So you don't have to then go back to the voters again. Or let's say, right now, having cultivation is not a possibility because, as Randy stated earlier, we just don't have the water. But in the event, all of a sudden, we just have so much water we don't know what to do with, and we would like to, consider cultivation. Then we already have something in place that could apply to them. But I don't see in the near future that 6% even getting applied. And all the other ones are specifically stated. So it would be retail, including delivery, would be 5%, and then manufacturing is 4%, distribution and testing is 2%. So the businesses we talked to felt that was fair.
And some of the businesses actually may be paying in two categories, because they may be distributing, and they may also be retail selling. So some of those products may actually fall into a category where they're taxed a couple times before they leave Brisbane.
And the businesses were okay with that?
We really try to be sensitive to their margins too, because in some different types of operations, they have bigger margins than others, and so we try to reflect that in the breakdown of taxing. So, are you comfortable with that? Any other questions?
Yeah, no, I'm glad that you took it back to the subcommittee to really, I think, come back with a well-crafted ordinance, and kudos to both of you.
Thanks. Okay.
With that, I'll make a motion.
Let me see if any member of the public wishes to speak on this item. Okay. I'll let you
With that.
continue.
With that, I'll make a motion to consider adoption of Resolution 2019-29, calling for a special municipal election to be consolidated with the general election.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, item D, consider adoption of Resolution HA 2019-01, adopting amendments to the Brisbane Housing Authority First-Time Homebuyer Loan Program. Staff report, please.
Yes, thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of the council. The Housing Authority is a successor to the Redevelopment Agency, administers the city's first-time homebuyers buyer program. And that program, under that program, the Redevelopment Agency issued a number of silent second mortgage loans to assist low and moderate income households to purchase market rate homes. And under those silent seconds, they're basically zero interest loans. They don't require any sort of annual or monthly payment. They're repaid upon sale of the property. were paid in full. And then also, when the property is sold, the housing authority shares also gets a share of the appreciation of the property. So that's shared between the previous owner and the housing authority. The condition of the loan also requires that borrowers enter into a resale agreement that maintains the price and occupancy restrictions to make sure that these properties do remain affordable for low and moderate income households over time. In last year, 2018, the Housing Authority for the first time received a resale notice for the first property that was actually going to be sold under this program. And the property owner, with the assistance of the agency, the authority, went through the effort of attempting to find a qualified buyer. They were unsuccessful at that point. The Housing Authority ultimately acquired the property and went through another marketing effort to find a qualified buyer, and was unsuccessful in that effort as well. Those two efforts did point out some challenges with the program as it's currently structured. And so staff is recommending a number of changes to the program to hopefully make it a little more successful the next time that property is marketed. Property we're talking about in question is 1 San Bruno. The unit there is the one that's on the market. So anyway, the basic provisions and modifications are outlined in page 2 of the staff report. They were discussed with the Housing Subcommittee, Mayor Davis and Councilmember Lentz, a couple months ago. And I think there's concurrence on the terms that we're proposing for change. The first 3 is bulleted in the discussion section, are kind of more technical details related to qualification. They're to align the first and the second sort of eligibility requirements so they're not inconsistent. They also get into the things like source of down payment funds and adjustments to assets for purposes of calculating income. The more sort of the policy-based one I want to discuss a little more are the expanding the eligibility criteria, because right now the program is limited to first-time home buyers who either live in Brisbane, work in Brisbane, have an immediate family member who has lived in Brisbane, or work for a school district in Brisbane. And it's being suggested that the program be opened up to include households living or working in District 5 in San Mateo County. So what were previously the criteria would be retained as preferences, but not as limitations on the program. So if you had a pool of eligible applicants, those who met those preferences would still have sort of higher priority, but we didn't want to limit it to that, again, based on past practice and our inability to find a successful applicant. Another change would be allow the Housing Authority to reduce or waive its share of the shared appreciation. Again, that's seen as a potential roadblock to certain sellers or buyers who might be interested in selling the property in a limited number of years, and that could be a constraint. And another change to the program that's suggested is to allow some flexibility in sales price. Again, if the Housing Authority ends up acquiring a property like this, I believe the authority should have the flexibility of adjusting the price, again, to achieve the desired outcome of making it affordable for a low or mod income household. So those are kind of the major changes. Staff is recommending adoption of Resolution HA 2019-01, and we'll take any questions you might have.
Council questions?
I have more of a discussion than a question.
Okay. Anybody else have a question?
I do not.
No.
Okay. Is there a member of the public wishing to speak on this item? No? All right, go right ahead.
So, on the expanded eligibility, so we're looking at increasing it because we don't to other communities, even though those other communities have not paid into this program. Wouldn't that, if we're lowering the standards so that we can, the qualifications, shouldn't that be enough to get applicants in Brisbane rather than open it up to other communities? Or there's something wrong with the property that is part of that first-time home buyers? I mean, and is that the issue we're having with this particular property, that it has issues that make it undesirable? And are we tailoring this just for this one property?
I would probably characterize the problem as structural, in that the idea of providing gap financing, of having market rate housing and trying to make it affordable to low and moderate income households creates a challenge as the median house price goes up and the properties become more valuable or expensive, because you get into monthly expenses, property tax, et cetera, that start to create sort of a monthly burden that, when you start looking at the math of what, qualifies as a moderate income household, it becomes very challenging for an individual to, at that income level, to cover all the costs, an HOA and property tax, without spending an inordinate amount of their monthly income on basically their house. And that's kind of the structural flaw that we're trying to overcome in ways, and we're trying to, again, make it a little more attractive. And again, whether or not we'll have more success, I think we will have more success by sort of broadening or loosening the criteria. But in the event we still end up not being able to identify a Brisbane resident or worker, the idea of having some flexibility to expand the program if needed, to basically get this property into use, is really, we look at it as kind of a safety valve, because at first classifications, the residents and the workers will still have priority, so that they'll receive priority. But if for some reason we can't find a qualified applicant, it does increase the pool.
I would be more open to make it broader, instead of adding different cities to it, to perhaps add other school districts or, fire departments or other cities' workers, or public employees, and broaden it that way rather than other cities. And that's just an idea that I'm bouncing off the fact, sort of at the late date. But I think that might be a better way to broaden this, rather than to bring in other cities' employees or other cities' residents as a whole, and try to keep it more. We've always talked about providing housing for, public works employees and teachers and firefighters and that kind of thing. And so I would rather try to keep that as the premise rather than open it up more broadly to other communities' residents. I don't know if there's any traction there.
Well, I don't know if and the staff can chime in. I think that I don't think you can narrow the pool like that. I think you have to keep it open.
Looks like John wants to say something.
Yeah, I know there are implications of fair housing law.
Yeah.
I thought the city attorney might want to weigh in terms of that idea of can you give sort of exclusive preferential treatment to certain classes of people based on employment or whatnot. So I'd defer to the city attorney as to the viability of that.
Just as a chime in before he does, we're already giving preferential treatment to teachers.
Yeah, I think that no doubt somebody would challenge. I'm not going to say which way it would come out because I think it's unclear. These programs tend to be upheld because, just like the teachers program was, what Mr. Zawicki is referring to is the broader application of preferential treatment programs. If you go outside the city, you end up looking like you're favoring one class of citizen versus another, and that becomes problematic for reasons I won't go into here, but it could be challenged. as I understood what you were saying, and I may have misunderstood, Mayor Pro Tem, I thought you were saying that if they might be residents of, or employees of the city of Brisbane living in the area, would it be available to them? Or did you mean employees of other cities?
I mean, other public works employees. So that we may be encouraging a public works employee who may work in Daly City to live closer. And again, if it gets it too convoluted, I can understand that. But, you know, or maybe leave it as teachers in these other 3 communities. But rather than open it up so broadly.
Teachers has been accepted. I'd be very, I would ask you to put it over if you want to broaden it to other public works employees. We have to look at that because you don't want to have to be defending a lawsuit that was avoidable. But the law gets very sticky under fair housing laws.
What we could do is, since that's not the only change that's been made, I mean, we've made quite a few changes here to hopefully get applicants that would qualify. Maybe we can make all of the other adjustments, but leave out that one that you're concerned about, because that might not even come into play. And then, you know, if we really don't get any applicants, then maybe we can come back and reconsider adding this, you know, opening this up to other communities at that time.
I would be amenable to that.
Does
I think
anybody
what
have
we-
any?
If you could articulate the options you'd like to look at generally this evening, that would be helpful, and then we'll look at them.
It
Does
would,
each
it would
factor matter
just
and gets
be
a little more
having,
complicated?
removing item 4 to expand the eligibility.
And then how long of a time period do you suggest that we see if we can get someone from the local community wanting to move into that unit? And if, you know, should it be like 3 months, 6 months? And
I would definitely say less than 6. I mean, what is staff? How long does it like?
I would say you'd want to give it a minimum of 90 days because we would need to, you want to get it out there, you want to advertise it, then you have people who actually kind of go through the process to determine if they're going to be able to be eligible. I'd say it's going to be a minimum of 90 days.
What would you feel most
120.
comfortable with?
I'd
90
say
days
if
or-
6 months, if, you know, we've gone through the process and we have either a very small pool of applicants who even have made the attempt, or we have a pool of applicants and none of whom made it through the qualification process, we would know that in 6 months.
So I have a question. Is this resolution would change any home that's in the first-time home buyers program? And we have more than just one San Bruno that is in this program. And would that mean that the other homes that are in the first-time housing would now be governed by this moving forward, along with the change in revenue potential, or
That's correct. It
so their
applies.
contracts would change, so we would basically be giving a large bonus to all the other current people who are in this program because we're trying to market one San Bruno.
Wouldn't it be new people going forward, or is it retroactive? Now everyone's changed.
The intent was to cover everybody who's currently under the program, because the expectation of this fundamental gap between housing price and income, we don't think it's unique to one San Bruno. I mean, you're going to have the same sort of issues of this gap. And again, the city, it's up to the city's discretion if you want to provide sort of like the change in appreciation. They're not entitled to that. You know, there's still a shared appreciation requirement. And if the city chooses to do that on a case-by-case basis, you have the ability to do that, but there's no entitlement on anybody's part. You're not gifting anybody, you know, a windfall. That's something
But
you
who
would
makes
decide.
that determination?
It's these kind of discretionary interpretations that while well-intended, you can end up with exactly the question of, well, who made that interpretation and why did it apply to them and not to me? As far as retroactivity, you can clarify that this is meant to either apply going backwards or not. You can be very clear on that tonight. That's not a material change. In terms of changing the program materially, taking out a pretty major element of what's being talked about, I would again suggest you either put it over or ask for a legal review. When it comes to housing programs, it's just better to be careful because they do lead to litigation and it's very expensive for a city, so you want to avoid it if possible.
Okay.
I would like to see us exhaust getting local people and local workers into the program before we expand it.
Yeah, I agree. I have a question, if I may. So, say, John, we did a 6-month exploratory, outreach to get someone within Brisbane or works in Brisbane, that unit, and then after 6 months, then could the expansion of the outreach automatically kick in, so that then we don't have to bring it back to the council and just after a 6-month time period?
I would defer to the city attorney as to, because again, since we're not dealing with a one case situation, if it's going to be a program wide, I don't know what you would do that every time then, and future sales, it would be that way you'd have to kind of think of it programmatically, not as a
Yeah, no, you're right. You got to
project.
separate.
I don't know that I would be in support of that because I think Terry had made some other suggestions, which doesn't sound like legally we could implement, but I think we might be able to come up with some other creative things that could be solutions and that could work and that could be a little bit more Brisbane focused if we needed to. So I would be in favor of just removing that last part that Terry mentioned of seeking applicants outside of Brisbane who don't have any relationship to the city, whether it be a close family member that lives here or that they work here or, they already live here. And then after that 6-month point in time, we could come back and review. And I would say that I would make it applicable to this property and properties moving forward that are available for sale.
Yeah, I really appreciate that because I think that by removing item 4, I just worry that we are writing this, I shouldn't say item 4, bullet point 4 in the staff report. I see you looking at me because I'm not being clear.
I think item F on the page 6.
And I just worry that we're writing this ordinance for one specific property because we're having an issue having it be marketable. And so I would rather have it be a broader item. If we're going to make these changes, it needs to be, broader, that we're looking at other properties and future properties and the existing stock that is in the affordability first-time homeowners. So I would want the item 4 to be removed and then also to be moving forward with new properties
Well, item
that
4
come
would
into the system.
it would be amended, not removed, right? Because they could still live in Brisbane, work in Brisbane,
Yes.
have an immediate family member.
Yes.
It would just be number.
It would be the line that says, which includes Brisbane, and take out the Colma Daly City
Yeah,
and portion of San Bruno's and South San Francisco.
unincorporated.
Incorporated areas. Take out that portion. And I'm, again, looking at the staff report, not on
You're
the,
going to have to give us page where you're looking at.
Where-
okay?
Page 2.
of the staff report.
Through the chair, if I could suggest you go to page, it's either struck out page 6 or 13, or it's kind of doubled up. That's the actual program language. So what you're suggesting in that item 3 is
So we
basically
just would take
eliminating
out-
all the red line additions. You're going to leave it back to what it was
Go back to
originally. You're
where
going
it
to retain the
was.
strikeouts, eliminate the red line proposals, and that would be back to the language that previously existed.
Well, it would be striking out in paragraph 3, item A, leaving in the city of Brisbane and taking out the San Mateo County District 5 district, electoral district, and where it repeats in the following language, the other items I think could be left in.
Yeah. It would just be removing San Mateo County District 5 electoral district.
And then we would have to we would want to put in, back in item 4 and 5.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then have some sort of legalese at the bottom that this is applying to current available housing stock, current programs. It wouldn't be available housing stock. How would you word that to include the one open property and then future properties?
The program owns the current property, correct?
Yes.
Are there any other properties that program currently owns?
No.
Okay, so we would limit it by making it applicable to properties owned by the program currently or in the future.
Okay.
Great.
And that would need to be part of the resolution, Madam Mayor. If I may clarify,
Yes.
The motion or the resolution?
Language.
question for the language for
Okay.
Ms. O'Connell. Are you on 3A, you're restoring the city of Brisbane, you're striking San Mateo County District 5 electoral district? Are you
Yes.
doing the same on B?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. And those are the two changes plus the addition of the language I just talked about ownership of the property.
Yes.
You will also be striking all that red line text where those, what were criteria were turned into preferences. So
Yeah.
additionally, where there are multiple, that whole language will be
Yeah.
stricken as well.
Yeah.
So, and we're adding back 4 and 5 on the next page, correct? So aren't we just going back to the program as it was?
With the additional tweaking, right, to make it more appealing, correct?
Oh, the other changes are still. in
Yeah.
there.
The other
Yes.
changes
There are
are
other
still the
changes throughout. This is only on that
So
one.
just in
particular-
this one, all right.
So we're going to try and, with those changes with what currently exists, to see if that is enough of an incentive to get someone
Right.
from Brisbane to get into that unit.
Okay. So if I may try to articulate this, as I understand it, we are looking at the language on page 13 of the actual report to the council, the full document. 3, in the title, we would restore the city of Brisbane, take out San Mateo County District 5. 3A and B, we would do the same. Under B, we would strike all the other red line. We would restore on the next page, item 4, which is currently struck out, would be restored. Item 5 would be restored. Item new 4, qualify for a first mortgage, would become item 6 again.
Yep.
We would then add the other proposed language changes would be accepted by the council, or proposed for acceptance by the council. And we would add language that it applies to any property currently owned by the program and any future properties owned by the program.
Yes.
Is that
Who
the
would like to
intent?
make that motion?
Okay. And then within a certain amount of time, we're looking at 6 months. If we don't find anybody, then
I would not.
back.
No, we
I
would
would not
like to
try
have
to-
And I'm not going to put it in here,
Then we'll
but I mean,
pull it back.
That's
Yeah.
That's
have
direction
discussion.
from the council. That's your direction. We'll take that.
okay.
Those changes wouldn't revert. Yeah, we would just, it would come back for a discussion.
So can I just say I would make a motion to approve the amendments to the first-time home buyers program with the noted changes?
Yes, to section 3 as described on page 13 of the full report. Yes.
And the addition of limiting it to current and future owned properties by the home buyers program.
You've made the motion. Yes.
Yeah.
Second.
All those in
job.
favor? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That was a toughie. Okay. Item E, consider appointments of representatives for the city and the Guadalupe Valley Municipal Improvement District GBMID water systems to the Bay Area Water Supply and Conservation Agency, BOSCA, and Bay Area Regional Water System Financing Authority, RFA, appointments. Staff report, please.
Honorable Mayor, Pro Tem, council members, good evening. It's a pretty self-explanatory item, I believe, on the staff report. You've been taking this action since 2003. The reason it's on new business is that you have to make an action in open session to identify which individuals you're going to assign to represent both the city of Brisbane and GVMID. So I'd be happy to take questions, or you may want to ask the audience if they want to make any comments.
Any questions?
No questions.
A question.
Is there a member of the public wishing to speak on this item?
Actually, I have a question.
Okay, why don't you come up to the microphone?
Hi, I'm Seppi Richardson Wood. I'm former mayor and your representative at Bascow Director Board.
So my question is, why do you want to do this?
Why do I want to do that? I think it's a very critical information, very critical area, and you've allowed me to serve since 2012, and I have the time to do that, and I'm very interested in the subject. It's as you know, Bascow has been 63% of the budget of Bascow goes to support reliable water supply. It's really important. You're talking about 63%. They're involved in conservation. They're very much interested in finding ways to improve the water supply, the conservation, all of that. I was looking at that thing. They have, this was really interesting, that they provide water supply to 26 cities and water districts and different businesses. They provide water supply to 1.8 million residents and about 40,000 commercial and residentials and so forth. And there was I wanted to share this. I guess I lost it, but I had the information. Oh, here. They provide about, well, I lost it again. The older I get, the harder it's to read. About 184.8 million gallons of water per day, which average residents use about 58.6 gallons per day. I think that's a very important subject. It's a very important issue. Water, to me, it's from past history, it's gold. Gold for us to survive. For a week, I didn't have water. For 3 days, I didn't have hot water. It was extremely difficult. So I'm very interested in that subject, and if that's something that the council wishes to allow me to continue, I would dedicate whatever time that I need to allocate to make sure that we represent this involvement with them. The interesting thing about it, I know the council has shown interest to be represented at that board yourself, and I'm totally for it if that's what you want to do. At the same time, they meet at the same time that we meet, and there are other meetings. They have, so I'm dedicating whatever time it's needed to make sure that the city of Brisbane is represented. And as I mentioned too, the other thing is, Randy has tremendous respect all throughout the county, and his expertise and his technical expertise respected, and having him definitely somebody like me that is more keen on the relationship building and so forth. Together, we've been sufficiently representing the city. So
Okay.
That was my only question.
Thank you, Seppi.
you're most welcome.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you for serving.
Thank you for allowing me.
Okay, that leads to council discussion. What's the council's pleasure on this item?
Yeah, oh,
So I think we need to name that we want Randy Burrow and Seppi Richardson Wood to represent us on the BOSQA. Is that how we want it?
Why don't we just be a little more specific, that Randy is going to be your appointee from the GVMID system, and Seppi will be your appointee
Oscar.
from the city of Brisbane.
Okay. So I'll make a
Yes,
motion to appoint Randy Burrow to the representative for BOSQA for the GVMID, and Seppi Richardson Wood for the representative on the City of Brisbane Water Supply District.
Bosca and RFA, right?
Correct.
second.
All those in favor?
I,
Aye.
Okay. Staff reports. City managers report on upcoming activities.
I know you're all pensive.
I can't wait.
Toy Story. Movie will
Yay.
start at dusk for around 8:30 p.m. tomorrow evening. Is it in the park? In the park.
You forgot
Story
toys.
Costumes are highly encouraged.
There you go. I was like, can't miss that part.
Okay. Wildfire awareness event will be on Saturday, this Saturday from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. here in Brisbane City Hall, our community meeting room. Come and learn wildlife preparedness strategies for residents.
correct.
There will be representatives from the North County Fire Authority, Brisbane Police Department, City of Brisbane Alerts, CAL FIRE, San Mateo County OES, San Mateo County Alert, and Fire Safe San Mateo County, and the California Department of Insurance. We will have a free electronics recycling drop-off for San Mateo County residents this Saturday, June 8th at 10 to 1 at the Brisbane Marina, 400 Sierra Point Parkway. Acceptable items include small appliances, phones, televisions, computers, radios, and electronic games. Items not accepted are batteries, light bulbs, large appliances, smoke detectors, solar panels, and thermostats. Also on Saturday from 9 to 2 is the mountain plant sale at the Mission Blue Nursery. And this is across the road over here. Native plants for climate change resiliency. So that will be on Saturday, and looks like they will also have a talk at 11 a.m. And that's it for this week.
That brings us to Mayor Council Matters. Item A, create a tree ordinance ad hoc subcommittee and assign council members to the subcommittee. Is there anyone interested?
We're all jumping right at it.
So Karen's interested. Who else is
I'm-
interested?
I'm happy to be on that if you want to do it
Great.
when I'm available.
Do we need a motion to appoint them, or is that sufficient?
You also need to determine what other support or committees that you have you might want to participate in this. Do you want OSEC to participate? Do you want Planning Commission?
No, I think OSEC participated already,
Okay.
and
Perhaps if we leave it open where we discuss it and then
Okay.
yeah.
invite the other departments to
meeting,
come in
good.
with any changes we may want
Okay.
made.
As required,
Okay, so that's Karen and Terry?
yes.
Okay. All right, we're good.
Okay. That brings us to countywide assignments and subcommittee reports. I'll go ahead and start. I attended a BB-CAG meeting, but I forgot all my notes. I just realized. And I really would like to do a robust report on that. So I will plan to do that on June 20th. Ingrid, would you be able to send me a reminder that day and just say, bring your notes? So I don't want to forget. And then I attended a Baylands subcommittee with Councilmember Lentz, and we met with UPC and some of their remediation consultants. We talked about the sustainability white paper, and we were also talking about hiring an urban planning consultant, which the subcommittee plans to interview. And we also had discussed appointing 2 planning commissioners to the Baylands subcommittee. Would that be something of discussion now, or is this just more to be informative?
I think more to inform tonight, and then we were going to bring it back on your June 20th agenda for discussion and implementation.
Okay. Do you want to add anything to that?
We also talked about transportation and the potential usefulness of having the various transportation agency heads. So from San Francisco TA, San Mateo County TA, Caltrain, coming to a Bayland subcommittee meeting and really getting their input in regards to what are potential public transportation opportunities, so that we don't have a giant, traffic jam every single day, right? How do we take all these different modes of public transportation and use them in the most efficient way possible? So that was one of the things that we discussed.
And then Councilmember Lentz and I also met with the Bayshore School District as a part of our 2x2 subcommittee. And we met with the superintendent, Audra Pittman, and then 2 of their board members to kind of figure out where we had items of mutual interest, which really came down to a high school on the Baylands and what were the possibilities in getting that to happen, and how could we partner with each other to help move that process along, and also just discussing a desire for all the children who are in Brisbane, not just in the Bayshore School District, but in the Brisbane School District, to benefit from the development at the Baylands, and what might that look like. So it's really just, we didn't get too deep into it. We mostly were just there to learn a little bit about each other, especially since I haven't met with them yet. And we do plan on meeting with Jefferson Union High School District and Brisbane School District around the same items of interest.
Yeah, it was a very positive meeting. The school, the Bayshore School, it's a really nice school. Brand new, K through 8. Actually, I guess pre-K through 8.
Yeah.
And just very nicely designed. Really great use of the space, and they're excited about partnering with us. Though, based upon things that have happened in the past, they're a little wary, to be expected, but they see potential, great potential opportunities for education, and they do want to partner with us. So that was very positive.
And that's all.
But was that more of a partner with Brisbane or partnering with BES?
So, they understand that, UPC's contribution is, to building a new school is limited, right? It's going to be, the city working with them and potentially working with the Brisbane School District. We like the mayor said, we didn't get into the details of that, but some of the things that we're talking about was how do you build community, right? Through the Home for All workshops, we know that people want to have stronger connections, and we know that schools are one of the major reasons for creating healthy communities. So how do all children of Brisbane and the Bayshore area benefit from this development? And so they're interested in partnering and finding out what solutions are out there.
We didn't really want to hash anything out until we had conversations with everybody that should be at the table. So it was really just more informational and getting to know each other and just figuring out, what are some of the things that have happened in the past that have kind of led to this situation where there is this lack of trust, and how can we take those steps to be in rebuilding that and repairing those relationships, even though they're not necessarily all caused by the council, just been things that have happened between these two communities. And so really for us was understanding more about that and how we can begin to repair those relationships. So
Great.
yeah. I see on here the Sierra Point design guidelines. Which of you would like to report on that?
Well, we had a meeting about Sierra Point design guidelines, and the developer HCP has come forward with some design changes that they want looked at, and those will be progressing forward to the Planning Commission, and Councilmember Lentz and I weighed in on their proposed changes. I'm not sure how much more we want
That's
to discuss
sufficient.
with that.
I think that's sufficient, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. I'll let you. I think it's okay to be vague in this instance. All right.
So other than that, I had a roundtable, SFO roundtable meeting last night, and I think the only thing that we can say positive about that meeting was that the city, or the airport has entered into a contract to purchase new sound equipment. Those will be installed over the next few months in the sites of the original recording instruments for the most part. There is some discussion on the changing some of the locations so that they are actually in areas that have noise issues, and then also having better information and more timely information as far as correlating it between actual flights and being able to separate out some of the community background noises and the low-frequency noises that they can actually report on, and give a little bit more information on the rumbling sound instead of just the actual noise. And so that's going to be ongoing, and we had a report from the FAA that really was a non-report. Surprise, surprise.
Surprise, surprise. I have something. So something's been bothering me for quite some time, and I would like to initiate the Planning Issues Subcommittee to take this up and have a look at it. I've thought for the longest time that the FAR, as it applies to very small properties in Brisbane and odd-shaped properties, small odd-shaped properties in Brisbane, was somewhat discriminatory to our first-time home buyers, the people coming into our community who can only buy at the bottom end. And I want to look at maybe changing the law as it applies to the really small properties, because I think it restricts a person who either cannot buy a bigger property from doing very much with their property. And when you look at the FAR as it is, it's an older law that I think we need to revisit, and I would like your blessing for us to look at it.
Can you remind us who's on? Is that an existing subcommittee?
That is an existing
That's Terry
subcommittee
and
of O'Connell and
Oh, okay.
Cunningham.
Could be me for all I know. I have like 25 at this point.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. Right.
I think trees and FAR sounds like a great night.
Yeah.
Well, isn't that, is it something we should take up, or is it something that we should ask the planning commission to look at?
Oh, that may come out of your discussion.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe you can give them direction.
So I would just say that rather than, I mean, we should just add that to our agenda if that's when we have our next committee meeting. If that's something we want to look at, we can make that decision, I think, independently
Yes. You know.
as a planning subcommittee.
I
to
didn't
see if
know
we
how that
wanted
worked,
to-
that's why I wanted to bring it up.
I'm not sure, but
Well, you could do it either way. I mean, I think a lot of times with subcommittees, you make recommendations to the full council. It's kind of like the cannabis one, where you've looked at different zoning regulations, and now you're going to make a recommendation to the full council to send on to the planning commission.
Yeah.
right. No, but I mean, I think that we can initiate that discussion
You could, sure.
in our meeting and see where we go with that.
Yeah. I think that's
Okay.
the idea.
I think that's what I asked, right?
Yes, that's my understanding of what our conversation was, yeah.
Okay. Thank
All
you.
right, great.
Then do we need to report out from our interviews?
I'm going to do that next.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to do that under
I wasn't
written
sure.
communications. I got a plan.
You got a
I
plan.
got a plan. Okay, so item C, city council meeting schedule. So the next city council meeting is scheduled for June 20th, 2019. And that brings us to written communications. So we received a resignation letter from Complete Streets and Safety Committee member Arthur Sun. His term is up January 2020, and the council will direct the clerk to notice the resignation. Since the council conducted 3 interviews for Complete Streets and Safety Committee vacancies on Monday, June 3rd, the council will not need to advertise or interview for the vacant seat. And we will appoint all 3 of the applicants we interviewed at the next city council meeting on June 20th. Christian Cabrera will be appointed for the Complete Street Safety Committee term that Arthur Sun has vacated through January 2020. Okay, and no comments on that. And I'll also receive the other written correspondences. Jeff Gee on May 7th. Regarding the San Mateo County API caucus launch, and Glenn Fieldman on June 4th, inviting the council to sign a letter to phase out fossil fuel production. That brings us to oral communications number 2. Is there any member of the public wishing to speak on an item not on the agenda? Please come forward.
Hi, thank you again. Just recently, as yesterday, I was approached by 2 items that they think that the council can definitely take leadership on this. One of them is they're very concerned, and I think it has to do with traffic safety and so forth. People are a little bit getting concerned by Lyft and Uber, the speed in which they cruise through the cities. And they're very concerned, and even one day on Kings Road, we have that high hill as you're coming. They're coming with such a speed up there that they really anticipate that something bad is going to happen in that area. And they want the council to take leadership and inform the street or safety traffic committee, whatever avenue you have to look at that item. The other item that was discussed to bring it to the council, and I'm sorry I didn't have an earlier time to notify you because it's the appropriate thing to do. But I think the city has done a fabulous job in educating people about Home for All, and their RENA that we're talking about, being able to meet our housing requirement. And some of them are really becoming very creative and want to help the city. And they're looking at in their property, how can they help with that count? And also they're understanding the county, San Mateo County, is laxing some of their ordinances and so forth. And they would like to know what does that do with our city? How can these people help but don't know how the ordinances are going to be impacted, or any way that they can help the city to meet their housing requirement. Maybe through some good information on the website, or we have quarterly on the Star, or the quarterly report that weekly report that we have that we post. Maybe some way we could inform people about Home for All and how residents can help, or understanding of the county and our role in that housing situation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Seeing no one else, I'll move to adjournment.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.